Okay, so while I'm eating, I decided to hold another video on the bicycle issue because I think it's very important. It will not be the last one. There will at least be one more. That's why I titled it 3 out of 5 and now 4 out of 5. And I have some like several other things to I need to buy some food, so it will probably be finished later tonight. But there is something very important I need to say right now. I hope that people are listening and they care about what I'm going to say, because I think it's incredibly important what I'm going to say right now. The most important thing that you should understand regarding the bicycle mechanism is that it is far less important than you think that it is. If it was so important, I would have spoken about it long ago, years ago, but it is not. There is the concept of NPC, non-playable character. The character is the important thing. Now we should elaborate, and these have like very, very important practical implications. The huge crimes that the Israeli committed throughout the years are not necessarily, related to the usage of the bicycle mechanism, but to the usage of the bodily fluids of the strangers for their own egoistical material benefit. They treated strangers like farm animals. After they committed genocide, they continued to treat them like farm animals, and they treat me like farm animal. And these bodily fluids, under the microscope, it was demonstrated by me that they actually contain robotic entities that are incredibly sophisticated, unimaginably sophisticated, and that their behavior break the laws of physics, and that that they are a civilization, like a kind of a civilization of their own. I call them the Neros, and most of what I published in this channel is research on the nature of these creatures, those entities. And as also hypothesized that are actually several kind of like Neros, that my own are unique, and this was proven that they are unique because they are, and I call them the yellow robots, the yellow Neros. They are far superior than any others. But my estimation is that there is something like that also in the bodies of the Venusian males and females. I call it the red or the brown Neros. I never watched it under the microscope. Now the Israelis, historically, they like to eat all of them. They didn't know about the yellow ones, like my own type, and they denied its existence up until very recently. Let me take a bite. I'm sorry, for being rude, but I'm hungry. But they like both the male Neros and the female Neros, and they like the mixture of the two, which is kind of like eating babies. And they also ate babies, not like materialized babies, because they are cannibals. But they like the mixture of the two together, because this is, and I don't know how, it's very, as I said many times in the last previous videos, I don't know how this methodology, which is so important in the Israeli mind, how they, they use words like coffee or tea, but this is cannibalism. And I don't understand, what's the conceptualization of what they're actually doing? As I said, it's very difficult for me because I approach this issue from the scientific point of view. I watch it under the microscope, and I held so many hours of research, and it was documented very well in this channel. And I hope it's open to the public, or at least to people of various states of this world. So but obviously they never they don't care about science. They understand it as kind of a cannibalism of other creatures, and I fail to understand how they actually, of course from the moral perspective, how they can be so satanic, but also how they conceptualize to themselves what they're actually doing. But that's what they do. And it's important, and this is a genocide, and it's inhuman. It's inhuman and understatement. This is cruelty that the entire earth should be punished for, because they don't stop it, and they also enjoyed from it, at least in the past. But you should understand that the bicycle mechanism as a mechanism of influence is not incredibly important. It's something that was created in the planet Venus, and it has implication on other planets, and it has implication on humans, and it can be used in some circumstances, like I've described before, like with the knights of the kings and knights, like female knights of the round table, it can be used like to help facilitate familial. In a polygamist, mostly in polygamist like context, but not necessarily. It can be done like with just one man and one woman. But this is greatly affected by the circumstances of the planet. Like what kind of planet they live in. So this can be something like it can help like create a relationship like that are familial and sexual, but it create that are manifested like in child rearing, but also in protection of males that in some circumstances are under threat because of environmental circumstances. And as I said, this was already changed in the history of Israel, because the way that the robots actually act can change. They are intelligent entities and they can change their behavior. For you, it might look like laws of nature, but in reality, all these like seemingly voodoo stuff that surrounding the aliens and surrounds the aliens and the bicycle. This is, most of the things that are you don't understand of, if not all, are related to the existence of these entities, the neros that are. I'm under research. I conduct research on this matter for 7 months. I do whatever I can, even though I have no background and like I only have BSc in computer sciences, which is completely unrelated to the natural sciences and certainly not to life sciences. But I do whatever I can, and I think that I managed to achieve quite a bit with all modesty, even though I am under house arrest and without money. But these robots they are natural entities. They are entities in this world, and they are intelligent. They have intelligence, and they can change their behavior. And mostly the people, the creatures that can change their behavior are the cherubs that actually tell them, because we communicate with them. And many of the elements that you see in my paintings actually, I'm sorry if I'm doing it's like a promotional aspect of these videos, that I promote my artworks, but a lot of it is actually just that. This is communication with these creatures. So we can tell them to change their behavior. So the behavior could change, and it actually happened in Israel by my predecessor. But of course, the best, the most the optimal situation is not to change such things, because they are so important. And you don't change the things that affect the natural behaviors or consciousness creatures. Just like that. It's nothing that shouldn't be done. It was done by my predecessor because of extreme situation that was sent of cruelty and unbelievable vanity that was affected the actions of Homo sapiens in Venus and in Earth, not only in Israel, but it was centered around Israel. They were and they're still the main sinners. And it followed, it only took place decades after there was already a genocide that took place in the planet. So this is a super extreme situation of a genocide one species committing a genocide in another planet, and they then subjugate the remnants. They didn't kill everyone, but they killed tremendous amount of the population that was already small to begin with, because they are Paleolithic, and they take much of the remnants. They still do it. These assholes, they still do it, but. These are the circumstances during the 70s and the 80s. When my predecessor was active in Israel, it was after. So much cruelty was already done, and they take the remnants of to be served as slaves in Earth, in Israel and other places, and this was so severe that it required the change of the bicycle mechanism, fine-tuning of it. But even this this was not like, I mean, how to solve the issue, because only humans can solve the issue. Only humans can take the measures that are needed in order to somehow correct the things that they have done. This was true during the 80s and it's still true today. And during the 80s, both the USSR and the USA were reluctant to move their arms and legs, just like now, and they were punished tremendously. And they kept it like as a secret, but they were punished tremendously. Both like the people of the KGB and the people of the CIA were punished tremendously. This generation, and of course also the Shabak and the Mossad, of course, but this generation of the 80s, I mean, they kept it like as a secret from the public, of course, but many of them are still alive. And perhaps the current president of the United States, I know that he's quite old and he was like a politician for like 50 years or so. So for certainly, I mean, he was like, I don't know if he was like kind of like, I mean, if he dealt with like, I mean, like a security affairs, maybe he was different. I mean, I don't know. I mean, in Israel, all major politicians are somewhere related to security issues. But I'm not sure. I don't know what Biden have done like during the 70s or the 80s. But he was surely a politician like back then. So there is even quite like a probability that actually the current president of the United States was also part of this generation that was part of these affairs and he was also punished. And maybe he also carries this punishment to that day. I don't know, but it's actually a possibility because I mean, accidentally, I mean, he's relatively old and more importantly is like, I mean, he's politician for like it's not like Trump that, I mean, just became like a meteor. It's like, I mean, he has like 50 years of experience. So I speak about him not because he's that important, but it's just, I mean, an example of that. Some people they are still with us, like, I mean, from that generation, and only then that people, like, I mean, move their arms and legs to somehow correct the cruelties of the Israelis. And this is the main issue. It was the main issue then and now, not the bicycle. If you think too much about the bicycle, you don't see reality that's in front of you. Like, I mean, you start to think like, I mean, you're invaded by kind of like aliens that you cannot communicate with and you don't understand the way, but this is not true. You can communicate and you can understand the ways, and they are also, sometimes they are sinners. The bicycle mechanism cannot control a person's thought. Cannot be used to control the mind of another person, be that a Venusian, a cherub, or a human. 99% of the people of the Israeli intelligence believe in that, but the fact that they believe in something doesn't make it correct. This is incorrect. It is not correct, and it cannot be used to read mind. This is also incorrect. And many of them believe it, but I mean, it's like as I said, it's like a huge part of their culture and presumably even the religion in Israel. So they have all sorts of like beliefs that are not true. In reality, the main mechanism that is used in Israel in order to control people is state terror. State terror. This is the main mechanism. It was always like that. The state is committing terrorism against its own citizens. It was always like that, and it's still like this. This is the main way to control people. State terrorism. Not robots, not voodoo, not nanobots. State terrorism. Totalitarian, aggressive, oppressive behaviors that should not be accepted by any intelligent species anywhere. Specifically in Israel, this kind of state terror is also, since like a long ago, probably since the inception of the state, is also widely. It can be said that it is widely relying on what I call the method, or the Soviet method. It's something that I spoke about quite a bit in the past, and I still have many things to say about it. And this is entirely not related to the issue of the aliens or the robots or the bicycle, not at all. What I call the method is a group of, I would say, like an absolute group of all sorts of behaviors that, according to my analysis, are, I mean, most of it arrives from the Soviet Union, and according to my estimation, its roots are actually, even before that, in the intelligence services that were under the Tsar, actually. It's very old, and it's mostly incredibly disgusting and low-tech. Like, I mean, it's something incredibly disgusting. It relies on, I mean, also like, I mean, and and I spoke about it in the past. I don't know if it's time to repeat myself because I've spoken it quite a bit. I've said it relies mostly on some kind of like, I mean, philosophy that was very prevalent during in the Soviet Union and somewhat also in the West during the 50s, of extreme type of behaviorism, which means that, I mean, kind of philosophy that thinks that humans are completely like, or any intelligent creature is presumably like white, like a blank state that you can change to anything at all. That, I mean, you can change any person to be anything. I mean, you can, I mean, I remember like in the book of Bulgakov, like, I mean, there is like, I mean, Bulgakov, I mean, mentioned it like, I mean, of course, in like in a secret way because he didn't want his book to be censored, and anyway, they have been censored in the Soviet Union, and not by mistake. But I mean, so like there is like a situation, like, I mean, when the intelligence service, like they take like a professor and they try to convince him that he's a cat. It's a famous anecdote from like from Bulgakov, because I mean it's like that they thought that, I mean, that human are like clay, that they can be changed to anything, and most certainly it's possible to change their sexual orientation, and that's the thing that the Israelis like the most, and up until that day it's a major weapon of the Israelis. And up until that day, that's what they do. Like, I mean, all the time they try to change like the sexual orientation of the targets to homosexuality and also to be pedophiles. And this is, I mean, there is no greater sin. And if only for that, I mean, this country is doomed to complete destruction, without even speaking about the robots and the aliens at all. Only because they do it, I mean, to mainly to the Palestinians, of course, but also to other Arabs and of course Iranians and whoever they don't like, or they want to subjugate. And this is not related at all to bicycles or, I mean, or robots or whatever. This is a huge part of what they do in Israel. I call it the Soviet method, because, according to my estimation, it relies heavily on the philosophy of the Soviet Union, and also in practice of things that were done by the KGB, but before that by the NKVD. And according to my estimation, it was actually predates the NKVD. These practices are extremely low tech. I mean, yes, they amplify it by some kind of like by usage of monitors and, you know, like smart devices. So it was amplified during the years. I mean, but in essence, it is just, I mean, it relies on the fact that the target is living like among like many people that are all like, I mean, part of the security, I mean, sector, and they're all like, I mean, they all try to terrorize his life, mostly using voices. I mean, the main weapon of the method is just, I mean, the human voice, and possibly beeps and sound. It's incredible. I mean, it's 19th century technology, and it actually invented, according to my estimation, by the end of the 19th century. And that's I mean, it's a huge thing. It's a huge chunk of what they actually do in the Shabak, and probably also the Mossad, but it's much easier to do it like inside of Israel or inside the Palestinian Authority, because they have many people here. And as I said, the method relies mostly on, like, I mean, on presence of people, like, I mean, of actual presence of scumbags that, I mean, actually do create voices using mostly their own, like, throat, or, I mean, their cars, but not much, something much more sophisticated, incredibly low tech. And also, there is also, like, I mean, the hypnotic layer of this issue that I spoke about quite a bit in the past. It's like a complete religion. They believe, like, I mean, it's kind of like their religion. This is completely not related to the bicycle or to the aliens. In Israel, they believe in the intelligence sector. They have strong belief in kind of like hypnosis theory that was already debunked during the 1950s. I mean, it's incredibly backwarded and stupid, but it's a huge thing of what they do, because it's incredibly easy. Like, any piece of shit, like brainless piece of shit, can actually participate in this hypnotic religion that you can never tell if it works or not, because it's always like a kind of used with a mixture of, as I said, the other, I mean, aspect of the method, the Soviet method, plus state terrorism, which is the most important like factor, plus the bicycle. So the bicycle, the alien component here, the robotic component, is just, I mean, it's just another fruit in this fruit salad, and not necessarily the most important fruit. It's just, it's just, I mean, it's like, I mean, the orange juice, or the, you know, the grapes, like, I mean, the dried grapes that you sprinkle like on a fruit salad that contains apples and bananas and all sorts of like fruits, but you can do without it. I mean, you can do without the orange juice. Like, I mean, it gives the salad a good taste, like, and maybe cinnamon and like orange juice and like dried grapes. They're nice, like, to be added, but even without all of these, I mean, you can still eat like a nice like a fruit salad without no bicycle at all, which, as I said, comprised mostly by just state terrorism and also the Soviet method. which is a huge thing of what they do. And all sort of like hypnotic bullshit that, I mean, you can never know, I mean, if it works or not. It's something like, it's like, I would say 60% religion, and 20% outdated science, and 20% like social, I mean, mass hysteria or like mass psychosis. The bicycles are not that important. They are in itself. They are not. Of course, that when they are combined with all the rest, they amplify the subjugation of innocent people to the will of the state. But I myself, I'm a proof that, I mean, you cannot control a character using the bicycle, because there would never existed in the history of Earth. I will tell you that there was never a person that was ridden more than I am. Like I mean, by the bicycle mechanism. That I mean, there was never a person in this history of this planet that more people tried to use the bicycle mechanism in order to make him like kill himself, or I mean, act violently, or rape, or I mean, do all sort of stuff. Or to hear voices and like to see visions. I am subjected to this like from childhood, and certainly during the last 20 years, and certainly during the last 5 years, and most certainly during the last two years. I mean, it's getting, I mean, they do it all day, all night. So many people, like, I mean, there was never a person that was more under attack using the bicycle mechanism than I myself. And still, I did not commit any crime. In order to incarcerate me, to put me under arrest, they needed to frame me in something that I actually didn't do. Of course, I never heard that a person. Of course, I never acted like in any like divine sexual way, not at all. Everything that they told about me, about supposedly like sexual divine ways, it's all relies on videos that they directed, which is also something that they do since the 1950s. Not only them, but also other like in the intelligence services. But I mean, the Israelis, of course, they excel at everything disgusting. So yes, they create like false videos. But this is you don't need aliens for this. Like, you don't need like a bicycle for this. You just need to be cool and deviant. And moreover, you need to have clients. You need that other people like from abroad will actually want to see these movies. And because of this, they are created. That's why the entire Earth should be punished for the existence of these videos. Because if people wouldn't believe that, because none of it is admissible in court. That's why I was never judged. I was never put to trial because of this like supposedly this evidence that exists for decades now. Because none of this is admissible. But for some reason, people actually wanted to believe this kind of inadmissible evidence for many, many years. People, mostly in the United States. And that's why the Israelis continue to manufacture these videos. All of this is not related to the bicycle at all. I'm under attack for the bicycle mechanism all my life, and yet I did not pass the law. I did not act I did not act in an immoral way. I did not act in any I was always heterosexual all my life, and only manifested heterosexual behaviors like all my life. I didn't do anything that they wanted me to do. I never hurted myself. I never never. And they tried to make me do it all day and all night, and they failed for so many years. Because I am an NPC, non-playable character. Character, not person, character. Character. The best way to combat the bicycle mechanism is to develop character. Now, it should be said that together with the other element of state oppression and state terrorism, the bicycle mechanism was, the situation in the 80s was that, it was just another cool layer of oppression. So that's why my predecessor decided, I'm sure with the help of God, he decided with the help of God that it should be fine-tuned, but this was extreme situation. Extreme. It's not that every day it should be fine-tuned. It's like fine-tuning, the natural the natural parameters of humans. It's not something that you do lightly or like any day. But this was extreme situation. After a genocide and slavery, and so he decided to change it a little bit, to fine-tune it. And I will speak about what was actually what is done in the next video. Although I spoke about it in the past, but maybe you don't remember. So I'll speak about it in the next video, and I will also say, I mean, what kind of fine-tuning is needed now. But this will not solve the oppression, it will not save the earth. Only humans are responsible, I mean, for the destruction of the planet, because they don't care, I mean, while such cruelties are taking place. And only humans can, I mean, perhaps there is still a window of time, like, I mean, to somewhat, save something from humanity, but this can only be done by moving arms and legs, by rescuing me and my daughters from this hell, not by movements of mouths and tongues. Having said all of that, I will now address a very specific question with very specific implications. I know that some of you, like other nations, have in their possession Venusian females. Maybe I don't know how you get them. Maybe you got them, like, I mean, you captured them long ago and they are just imprisoned. And maybe you captured them lately using, like, the cornea and the iris test that I presented. I don't know. Whatever you did, good for you. Now you have them captured. And maybe there is another option that actually, like, there are kind of like refugees from Israel that, I mean, that are like Venusian, like, females that now, I mean, ask for, like, I mean, that are part of Israeli intelligence, and they ask, like, for, like, political asylum in like Western countries. And these Western countries, presumably, they think of them like as kind of slaves of Israeli slaves, and like subject to the terror of the bicycle. And so now they are like, they capture them. So they try to get, like, to very, like, likely interrogate them, like, to get information. But they also, I mean, they are very, they have, like, great, like, an empathy towards them, because presumably they're like, I mean, like emancipated slaves. But they also know that these creatures are, I mean, they conducted many crimes, perhaps because they were used as spies, like as agents of the Mossad and Shabak, and they've done many crimes. And maybe some of you ask themselves, I mean, what can we do with these creatures? I mean, they were part of. We know, like, for a fact that they committed hideous crimes. But when we interrogate them, we cannot reach any conclusion, because they seem that it's all, like, so, I mean, that they are not, they do not present any convincing theory that explain their actions. And for certain, many, blame me and portray me as evil. But you already, I mean, that was done for decades. That, I mean, that you know that Venusians and Israelis are portraying me as the devil. And by now you know that cannot be entirely true, because God Himself is frying the earth, and the earth is soon to be like, it's like in a barbecue. The earth is soon to be fried by the radiation, and you know the asteroids are on the way. So some of you ask themselves, I mean, if he's such a devil, how come, I mean, God or the cherubs or whoever, he told us that, I mean, asteroids will be on the way, and they are on the way. He told us about radiation, it's happening. So maybe we should think, maybe ask, like, although his opinions, and not only the opinions of the Israelis and the Venusian captured females. So yes, it's not too late to ask my opinion on the matter. This should have done 20 years ago. And it's not too late, because the earth is soon to be destroyed. So how can you reconcile the fact that these, like, Venusian females, I mean, they portrayed me in such a bad way, but, I mean, there are no evidence for that, and there is, like, much evidence to the contrary. And although it seems that I am in communication with divine, like, celestial beings, but also, I mean, there is the issue of the bicycle, and you don't understand, like, I mean, maybe they're like robots that, I mean, they are forced to do things against their will. So let me be very clear. Whoever that committed the crime should be paid for their crime. The people that committed crimes should be paid for the crimes. And if the crimes are hideous, they should be put to death. I believe in sometimes the death penalty is the correct. I'm not, like, categorically against the death penalty. I don't think that it should be used lightly, and it almost always should be avoided. But, I mean, yes, in some extreme cases, the death penalty should be is the correct path, the death penalty. And certainly, if you know of Venusians that committed hideous crimes, and I'm certain that you do know of such people, and you have them in your possession, like they are captured, and they do not present any, convincing argument to their actions, they should be paid. They should pay for their crimes. No alien mechanism like superseded the mechanism of free will, which is something that God gave humans and Venusians and cherubs and all other sentient creatures. Free will is a thing in this world. It's one of the tenets of creation. The world, like, the world is based. It's one of, like, I mean, you know, there is like the four forces that I already mentioned: the strong atomic loads, the weak atomic, the strong atomic force, the weak atomic force, and the gravity and electromagnetism. So, there are more than, it's not only these four, and it's also, the universe is also made, there are other forces in this universe, and one of them is free will. The universe is created with free will. It's not like an arbitrary. Some people think that, I mean, free will is like an illusion, that it's kind of like, something that like it's created, like, I mean, presumably by, it emerges. It's like emergent property of certain, like, chemical or electrons that are running through the brain. This is not correct. This is a mistake, and it's not true. It's not true. This is not true. I know people actually thought of, I mean, these kind of ideas were actually prevalent. Like, I mean, people believed in that, like, since antiquity, without like scientific justification. Just, I mean, by kind of like a scientific justification of kind of like extreme like version of positivism. So it's not new, and today possibly, like, more than ever, there are more people than ever that actually believe in it. Even though I would say that majority of humans do not believe in it, and they are correct, because it's not true. Free will and consciousness are specifically free will is free will. Let's put consciousness aside, because sometimes when I look on like, I observe, like, people, like, I see, like, in this hostel, like, or like the scum of the Shabbat that, I mean, is around me, like, all my life, I doubt the fact that they are consciousness in any way. But they have free will. So free will exists. It's not an emergent property. It is something that God created, and it's part of creation of this universe. It's a real thing, not an emergent property, and not an illusion. It's a real thing, free will, free choice. And the slaves that, I mean, that presumably you have, the female presumably slaves, they are not slaves at all, and they have free will. And if they committed crimes, they should be punished for the crime. I mean, if the crimes are hideous, and this is the case many times, they should be put to death. Don't let any supposedly alien mechanism, I mean, confuse you. This is secondary. The issues of the basically are secondary. They should pay for their crimes. And in many cases, they should be put to death if their crimes are that hideous. They have free will. Some of you ask, I mean, so who hides them? Like, I mean, who gives the momentum? Like, I mean, who is, like, I mean, the rider here? So as I've said, this is a complicated question, much more than the Israelis think it is, because actually the basic mechanism could be, and it was changed, like, to separate it to different, like, part of, like, that are under the control of the robots, like, I mean, a vision and sound and electrical current and other aspects, like smell. They can be tuned independently by the neurons, and they can be amplified independently. So the answer is complicated, but I would say the following. Most, if it's said to say it, but it is reality. Most, if not almost all, of the Venusian females in Israel are the scum of the earth. And this is true because they were born here mostly, or raised here, like, since they were babies, and they don't know any other like way of life. They are Israelis, 100% Israelis, and moreover they grew in families that are all related to the intelligence and security sector, that is mostly, like, predominantly populated by the worst barbarian cannibalists that ever existed in earth. They are snakes that grew up in snake pits by the worst parents, subjected to state indoctrination, and the result is unbelievably disgusting, like life form. Because education is important, and I mean, what can you do? I mean, when you grow up in a snake pit, many times you become a snake. And they don't know, most of them, not all, but most of them do not know of any other, like, they don't know of any other, like, I mean, kind of like way of life. That's what they know, how to be Nazi. And that's what they are Nazis. Almost all of them are disgusting Nazis. Almost all of them. They are either born here or raised here from the time they were babies. They were raised by disgusting parents in a cruel state, and they were indoctrinated in the worst possible way. And almost all of them are disgusting snakes. And they committed hideous crimes, and the ones that you captured, and if you, I mean, you trial them like in a trial, and they, I mean, like you do to any other person, and I mean their explanation were not satisfactory, they should be paid for their crimes, including in some cases the death penalty. Now I want to do some shopping to buy some food, so I will elaborate on these issues later because there is much to be said. But the important point is that they have free will. They committed hideous crimes and they should pay for their crimes. They are not robots. They are not controlled. The bicycle mechanism is not a way to control people. Like, it's only a way to terrorize people, together with other kind of state terrorism and like psychological methods that are partly debunked and partly just violence in all sorts of ways. And the sad reality is most of the Venusian females were raised in it. They do not know of any other like a way of life than the Israeli way of life. They were raised by snakes, and they become snakes, disgusting snakes.